I'm doing this video as kind of a feedback about the series I occasionally have enjoyed. For my background, I've played every single Battlefield since 4 was released, so I know quite a bit about the franchise beforehand. I also know that launching a game with some problems isn't new to Battlefield. The game is bound to change in the future, and I would not be surprised that some of my views or points were outdated already at this point. So just be a bit merciful, okay? To clarify right off the gate, I don't actually own 2042, which I'm critiquing here. I'm refusing to buy it out of principle, and since I'm a cheap ass, so I can't be bothered, sorry. I followed the commentary scene closely, and I have seen enough of the gameplay and mechanics and future planning of the title to point out some key problems that plague it, and I hope to convince you that you really don't need any gameplay expertise to see these problems. Stick with me, Haas, I'll try to convince you, and we'll see if I succeed or not. Let us continue without further ado. One might speculate what makes a Battlefield game distinctly different from any other FPS out there. One might say the nuanced vehicle play forms the core of Battlefield, alongside mixed infantry fighting. Another might say that it is the unique environmental destruction mechanics and large maps seen in the games compared to other titles. One might refer to the variety of unique game modes like air superiority and rush. As Battlefield players are aware, these features have changed to varying degrees in different Battlefield games, and some mechanics like behemoths remain unique to certain entries in the franchise. However, rarely anyone will deny the fact that at the center of the Battlefield formula is its class-based system. Let us break it down for you. 4 holy pillars go as follows: Assault, Support, Recon, and Engineer.
Get me a medic!
Assault. In modern and historical Battlefield, this is your core infantry class. Oriented around explosives and medical equipment, this class has access to medium to short range assault weapons. They form a frontline unit, healing and reviving allies while dishing out damage. They cover up sight lines or suppress targets with grenades, although in historical battlefields, assault doesn't get medical equipment. I'd say the medic role is much more applicable in this description. Players utilizing this class are usually either extreme altruists to the points of self-harm, or people who take grenade launchers instead of defibrillators and only heal themselves. Sick. Support. The heavy weapon specialist of the team. Support utilizes their big BB guns to deliver damage and suppression targets on the open or in choke points. They go through tons of data, but in exchange their class ability is to resupply allies and themselves. They also come with mortars that are generally only utilized by RTS players. These are the resident glue enjoyers of Battlefield. They do not care if they miss a lot of shots, because they know they will hit you eventually.
dungeon work, out of doors. I guarantee you'll not go hungry, because at the end of the day, long as there's 2 people left on the planet, someone is going to want someone dead. I think his mate saw me. Look, mate, you know there's a lot of feelings. Blokes were bludgeoning their wife to death with a golf trophy. Professionals have standards. Be polite. Be efficient. Have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
These are your stand-ins for Sniper Elite players. Usually found camping on high ground, trying to hit shots at long ranges with varying degrees of success. This class is effective at long range, although they can also adapt to mid-range and close quarters roles with shotguns and DMRs. Recon players have the best equipment for pointing out targets. They can spot players with flares, wall hacks or drones, and can bully enemy vehicles by marking them for death by friendly missile auto-aim. Also C4.
That was a little bit too short.
They can uniquely also set up spawn points for their team, although this is far less common.
Payback HL230p 45v12.
Engineers. Engineers are grease monkeys of Battlefield. They wield tools to both destroy and restore friendly vehicles. They usually sport rapid-fire close quarters weaponry and spam missiles at longer ranges at anything that moves. Both lock-on and dumbfire rockets are provided. Engineers typically have the best class traits for utilizing vehicles, and usually players utilizing this class are either sweaty tryhards, advocating for the removal of all the lock-on weaponry from the game, or are plain and simple masochists. They can also deploy mines, that's a bonus. Now, after you know the basis of the older system, we can start breaking down the new one. In Battlefield 2042, we have a new team system of specialists. Each operator has a different ability, which changes how the game is played radically compared to previous Battlefields. Instead of exclusive class role weaponry or gadgets, you can pretty much take any weapons you want. Every operator has a unique primary gadget and a secondary gadget, which could be ammo bags, C4, medic bags, anything the player wants really. As you can see, there are no longer 4 classes, although they are listed as existing. Your operator could really be tailored to do anything. It's only about synergies of which gadgets fit the operator primary ability the best. This surely would result in higher player freedom, thus resulting in a better game, right? Not quite so fast. Let us compare these two flavors of Battlefields to another well-known EA title. Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 doesn't have exclusive classes for gadgets nor weapons. You're able to select from a set of abilities for your pilot, but it is up to you to set a loadout that synergizes the best with your main ability. Or maybe it doesn't. You can use a speed boost and a shotgun, or a speed boost and a sniper. However, there is a crucial difference. Titanfall, in contrast to Battlefield, is different in its supporting mechanics. In Titanfall, the more damage you do, the more you are helping your team. Yes, that might be obvious. But in Titanfall, unless we count picking up batteries, radar jamming, or camping in Amped as supporting, the only way to help your team win is to do damage. There is no ammunition distribution and next to no healing. The game has high player independence, but with a caveat of this freedom being oriented around a singular set of mechanics. When you lose, it is a simple result of you and your team not doing enough damage. Overwatch 2 is a new FPS game made by Blizzard, where there is also a class system in place, kind of akin to Battlefield. You have 3 different roles: offense, support, and tank. In general, tank heroes are tanks with high health and shields who take most of the damage in the team. Offense are DPS with higher mobility and damage. Supports are healers, they heal. Yes, they do. Each has a single role they do, and that they usually do better than other classes. Damage is interwoven within each role, but they commit their primary role, which whether it be healing, tanking, or just pure damaging with their abilities. There are, however, combinations and synergies that beat others, since each hero, despite their role,
That wasn't very nice.
possesses unique abilities. In contrast to other games, do you notice something different? What might be the cause to our dichotomy? In Overwatch, your role is locked from the moment you queue to a match. You may switch heroes, but the amount of those is always limited. The system used to be quite different back in 2016. Class selection in any combination was free. This was until the despised, widely feared Goats. Goats, in essence, was the stacking of free healers with free tanks. These in combination would make for such a high sustain that fights turned into slogfests. In the small map format Overwatch has, teams with DPS players would be out-healed and wiped out at short range, while the only viable counter for Goats was another Goats. Or even before that, Brigitte proved out to be a healer that could freely dive and counterpick anything else the enemy team had, forcing them to also pick Brigitte. Players weren't able to play whatever they wanted, if they valued winning more than anything. Winning meant doing things in a certain optimal pattern. In a twist of irony, what was supposed to be a system encouraging player freedom turned into a veritable prison. After many issues with balance, the only option for the developer was to limit role queues in hopes of minimizing role alteration and the effects of large doom stacks. Now, what does this have to do with Battlefield, you may ask, which is a different type of game entirely? The key problem is meta, or the most effective tactic available. Although blaming the meta has been done to death and is a bit cheesy, it is nevertheless a trend that shows us which heroes are picked more over others and which weapons and abilities are used more often than not. Meta is a signifier of trends which are more convenient to players rather than inconvenient. For inconvenience is not fun, although sometimes inconvenient strategies can be fun, but we'll talk about that later in some other video, hopefully. However, as soon as you give major game-changing abilities to certain operators, you subject your game to a process akin to evolution. Convenient strategies beat inconvenient strategies. In Battlefield 2042, where maps are huge and empty wastelands of nothing, mobility as an aspect gets overemphasized. Why slog around as Angel when you can fly around the Sundance or the funny epic grappling hookman? Why wait for revive and save tickets for your team when you can spawn back faster than the medic can get to you? You have to choose between helping your team or acting conveniently, aka having fun. The supporting mechanics are inconsistent on top of inconvenient. Then there's even less of a reason to play support. If you can't revive people that are down or sometimes heal them due to bugs or inconsistent mechanics, you're less inclined to do so. Secondly, balancing player independence and player freedom are a key issue when scale grows larger in team-based games. If everyone can choose between supporting items and offensive items, would anything guarantee that players would take supporting items instead of just maximizing their own TPS? If you aren't close to a supporting player, or if nobody plays support, you have to find ammo from somewhere. This is why you can find healing and ammo boxes scattered through Battlefield 5 and its bigger maps. It's almost as if the developers already knew that bigger maps would separate players from each other, thus making players supporting each other less likely to happen. Titanfall's pilot system works in comparison to Battlefield because players don't need support at all. They are a one-man army, essentially. This simplicity removes quite a lot of problems that game designers would have otherwise. A similar system doesn't work in Battlefield, although on paper it might give players more freedom to customize their playstyle, simply because players need to be able to differentiate each other based on their roles. You might look at a hero with certain synergies, but you aren't really certain if they do have the items you need. This is the problem of the operator system, even if these operators are separated under classes. You simply don't know what each person has equipped, and the current system doesn't tell you much. It doesn't really help you illustrate where you can get ammo or medicine, or coordinate with other players. On top of this, if you have heroes that are stronger than others, for example due to meta shifts, you'll see certain classes be played a lot more than others. Healing might just fall out of fashion, or ammo distribution might be certainly quite difficult if your ammo carrying hero is made not fun to play due to counters. The key problem with individual operator abilities is counterplay. I saw a great commentary video by Finkratking, the link down below, also about Overwatch 2, where he dissects quite accurately, in my opinion, what makes Overwatch 2 so frustrating to play. When you have a game with individual heroes centered around certain playstyles, you're going to have counters to those set playstyles. On a small map with the team size of 5 and locked role selection, you have to have the edge over your contemporaries on the other team if you want to win. This might mean that you have to switch out from a hero you like to play. E.g., if the enemy team has a Pharah, you have to switch from Junkrat, or risk being annihilated. Team play is also too reliant on tank players knowing what they are doing, lessening the emphasis on skill displayed by other players in the match. Overwatch 2 turns into a game of rock, paper, scissors, where you have to constantly ditch what you play in response to the other team changing out their heroes, or risk being at a severe disadvantage. Well, aren't classes basically gonna run into the same problems as heroes anyway, since they have unique skills? Well, what differentiates a class system from a hero system is that in comparison to operators, it is easier to nerf a single gadget that is broken compared to reworking an entire character in the game. Also, a class system is much more flexible and customizable to the player. Instead of switching out to a different character, you can just customize a single gadget slot to a different gadget, and depending on the situation, you can adapt accordingly by just switching your perks and gadgets around depending on the map, for example. On the topic of map design, if you want to play sniper, there is guaranteed to be at least a couple spots on the map where playing sniper is viable. Almost every map has a point of contention that suits around close quarters fighting, vehicle fighting, or long-range sniper duels. Due to this, no class is truly made useless, unlike in the hero system. You can usually play however you like, regardless of what the enemy team has or the map is. Additionally, the team sizes in Battlefield are so large that it usually doesn't matter if a singular player doesn't do good or is learning the ropes. The magic of Battlefield is that no single class excels at everything. You have to have a certain class to do certain things. Thus you also know what each class does best and how to seek help from each. Despite having their own tasks, each class is not hyper specialized like operators, and there rarely are any hard counters, so to say. The classes are free to take different weapons for different tasks in the battlefield, and depending on the player, there's a lot of customization to be done on what one wants to do. You using your abilities optimally doesn't help just you, it helps the whole team. The 4 essential core pillars guarantees a kind of symbiosis between roles. A team with varied roles does better overall in sustain, vehicle power, map control and damage than teams with just one of these pillars in it. This composition can additionally adapt to different maps and turn over games where the other team might deal out more damage but lose out on healing and map control. More importantly than anything I've mentioned before, every player should have access to the mechanics that help their team, whether it be countering armor or healing. Some gadgets might be locked behind levels, but in almost every single battlefield the core teamplay elements have been easily accessible. Even if there is a weapons meta, even if some gadgets are better than others, you are never going to end up in a situation where an operator possesses abilities that beat their contraries, while the only way to viably counter them is to grind out a laundry list of boring challenges without missing a single season. Locking power behind operators while trying to prevent power creep is impossible in a live service model. Thus, it is quite possibly a problem that won't be alleviated with the reintroduction of classes to Battlefield 2042. It will only illustrate this core problem with operators even further. After all, the operators were kinda pointless in the first place. Every single one of these new abilities could have been a separate gadget. Operators served their purpose in a game like Rainbow Six Siege, the grandpa of operator-based FPS games, where there might be better operatives over others. Map knowledge and weapons handling makes the difference before everything else. The fact that selling separate skins and cosmetics for said operators proved to be a profitable business model for a live service came as a side effect, not as a core development decision. And even Siege has faced criticism over its newer operators and power creep in the game, which has proven to be quite difficult to manage. And I personally know a lot of people who miss old Siege for its simplicity, since the game used to orient less around operator abilities than it does now. Battlefield's skeleton of an operator system was clearly developed in lieu of profitable trends within the industry, and not Battlefield as an IP in mind. Instead of focusing on developing big content packs with quality to production like Parcel Storm, we will instead get a drip feed of locked operators and skins behind a season pass model. Sure, maps might be provided for free, but will it be worth it in the end? Splitting the player base, at least momentarily, might still be a better consumer-friendly choice, compared to forcing them to slog through a paid season pass filled with meaningless trinkets. For an operator, that is going to fall out of fashion as the next season pass drops. Season passes in a live service model might prove profitable, but in the end, is it going to be more sustainable or kill your game faster? We see it not work with Halo Infinite, and Battlefield 4 and 3 and 1 and 5 are still kicking and around. Besides this, I think DICE has lost its grip on what made Battlefield great in the first place. It was never about how massive the maps were, but about how well the classes interacted with said environment in the first place. Something like Operation Locker or Metro doesn't need to be massive. They just work well with all the 4 classes in the game. None is made redundant. Everyone on the team has something to do, regardless of how they go around doing it. I'd rather see quality maps be implemented with proper focus instead of the team cobbling together 3 maps on top of the season pass. I'd like to see the resources concentrated on making maps that work with all of the classes in the game, rather than having 3 maps with kind of an iffy interaction with 30 or 40 different operators that all have different counters and different interactions. It gets rather complicated. And sometimes oversimplicity is better and more functional than overcomplexity, in my opinion. Alright, thank you for making this far. It's really a surprise to me if anybody hears this, since my voice is kind of a gravel pit, I'd say. And my accent is a bit terrible. But yeah, I'd like to thank you for watching this. This is my first attempt at making a proper commentary video. And I'd like suggestions for improvement. If you want to, just leave them down below. Alongside with any contention, if you had any about this video. Because I'm not the ultimate arbiter of truth out here. This is just me kind of venting out my own frustrations. So, feel welcome to leave any critique down below. Like it and dislike it if you will, I don't care, I'm fucking tired, I need to go to sleep, see you later, bye.
Let the dark